Coming up in 14 minutes, we're back on First Things First. Sean Payton, now the coach of the Broncos. Drew Brees telling Ed Werder that this is just splendid news. He's really excited. He can speak for himself, but I think the idea of having Sean Payton come for what he's hoping is the rest of his career, I'm not sure there's a better scenario for him. Well, looks like everything's solved in Denver.
Yeah, go ahead and ask.
Aren't you happy? I think.
Well, no, I just listen.
I'm happy. Yeah.
The Broncos have gone about the absolute literal and metaphorical most expensive way to try to get their coach quarterback situation right. And while I like the coach, I think the quarterback's best days are long behind him, and I don't think you can fix Russell Wilson. I think you can get him from one of the 5 worst quarterbacks in the league, which he was, to a league average quarterback, but that won't be enough there. Trading 4 players and 4 premium picks just for the opportunity to overpay Russell Wilson, then having that go so terribly, you have to spend 2 more premium picks plus $20+ million a year for a coach, is literally the most expensive coach quarterback room in the league from a salary or from a picks expended standpoint. And so do I think that this makes the Broncos contenders? No. Do I think this makes the Broncos a playoff team? No. Do I think this prevents the Broncos from being a laughingstock? Absolutely. But unless Russell Wilson can get in the time machine to 5 years ago, I don't think they have a path forward, Coach.
Well, you said it earlier, that there's no getting out of this contract. So if you're the Broncos and your new ownership, you've got to figure out some way, or at least try every possible avenue to fix it or make it better. And at this point, Sean represents the best way to hopefully make that better. You go from a very inexperienced head coach, at least he was on the offensive side of the ball, to a guy like Sean with his experience, and you're giving Russell the best chance to be successful. And that's why they had to make the move that they did. Now, not having a first and a second next year and a second the year year after, that's a real problem. They're middle of the pack in terms of salary cap. That's a problem. If they lose E.J. Evero, the defensive coordinator, that's a problem. So there are major hurdles to overcome. In addition, whose system are you running? Sean's or what's best for Russell? That's got to fuse as well.
Well, see, look, I think Russ will be humble at this point. I mean, he's coming off a horrendous season, by far the worst of his career. I think he'll be humble enough to be like, what do we need to do? And listen to Sean. And Sean, I think, will be smart enough to say, okay, this is what Russ does well, we'll do it. This is what he doesn't do well,
Chris,
we won't
don't you
do
think
it.
you need to be self-aware to be humble? And that's the question, is he self-aware that it was a lot of him as opposed to the system?
He's got to. I mean, come
With
on.
all these media apologists he has that blamed it all on that happening.
Even I had to admit how bad he was midway through the season. But look, this is what Sean Payton did with Jameis Winston. From the 33 touchdowns, which obviously was good, and 30 interceptions, to 14 touchdowns and 3 picks only for Jameis in the 7 games he played, and he was a dark horse MVP candidate at that point. The next season, Dennis Allen takes over, right? Payton's gone. Jameis reverts back, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and gets benched. So I'm with Coach. You had to do it. The mistake was giving Russ the huge deal. But once you did that, you got to fix him because he's not going anywhere. And I think they did the best thing they could.
Coach, quickly, if Russ, who will be 35 around Thanksgiving, doesn't have it, do you think they can make a move at quarterback and sit Russ down?
I don't know how. The way his contract is structured, it cripples your organization if you try to move on from him. And that's the biggest problem, is you can't change without crushing yourself for years to come.
Maybe Jameis in Denver. Ooh, the altitude. This is the best question of all time. We're talking about Mahomes, Brady, Jordan, and LeBron. Oh, it's peak television now. Nets in Brooklyn. Day'Ron Sharp locked in, and lets Al Horford hit 3. Not great. More on this game later. Moving on to the wonderful Portland and Memphis. Brassard, the rare 7-point play from Dame here. Hits a 3, gets fouled.
Right.
So now he gets hits a free throw, but because it was a landing zone foul, they get the ball back. Hits another one. Wow. Ends up with 42 points, and Memphis loses again.
He's averaging 42 since Pat Beverly did that stupid time.
I told you, Pat Beverly, great motivator. Moving on to the weird. Rockets, Thunder. Oh, my goodness gracious. What's going to happen here? Oh, it's just a great pass from Shingo.
Hey,
Rockets win their 13th game. Not in a row, just in total. Moving on to the wonderful Wolves, Warriors. Naz Reid takes a three, misses it. Oh, but this is a hallmark of my basketball career. Miss a three, but hustle, get the rebound, and then I would just lay it in. Wolves win. The Warriors now 7
T-Wolves been playing some good ball.
and 19 on the road.
Yeah.
Weird Groundhog Day.
Is that
Long
you?
trip for me. Yeah, that's not me. What are you, ridiculous? That's me right there. 6 more weeks of winter. Sorry, everybody, but enjoy the show in the formal wear. Moving on to the wonderful Nets still in Boston. Jalen using Kyrie's own move on him. Whoop, whoop.
Ooh.
This was over
not
early.
As pretty as Kyrie.
10 straight wins again for the Nets, and Brew basically gave up on the Nets last segment.
No. That was just some analysis.
That's the weird and wonderful from the national pastime. Maybe a Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers reunion looming. Which neighborhood is Mr. Rodgers moving to? Not a pun, but close. It's a play on words. Devontae Adams says mine, and for the record, he does live in the same neighborhood as Derek Carr, so real estate, not necessarily his forte. Nick, is this a good idea?
No. Can I give a point of advice to the AFC West?
Please.
Stop trying quick fixes. Draft a quarterback, develop the quarterback, take your lumps. Don't then try to microwave it like the Chargers did. They got the quarterback draft part right. They got the quarterback develop part right. Then they're like, J.C. Jackson, pay you, and Khalil Mack, and we'll spend all the money, and then you're in a rough spot again when you're not ready yet. The Broncos, we can't be trusted to draft and develop a quarterback, so we'll trade all our draft picks for a ready-made quarterback in Russell Wilson. Now, the Raiders are trying to do that even more so for a guy who's almost 40 and might not want to play anymore, but we know he wants to go down to the Amazon and have a fun summer. It's a terrible idea. If you want to compete with the preeminent team in the league, you're going to have to do it the hard way. Not try to do it for 18 months and then be in a rebuild again. And so trading your draft picks to get aging players, wildly expensive, is not going to help you win this division.
That's a good point.
So do it the hard way and try to actually compete. That's my advice.
Okay, but here's the thing. Josh McDaniels, he needs a good season. All right, he hadn't had one yet. 3 years of head coaching, 2 in Denver or 1.5, and this last year. He has not had a good coaching season yet. And Devontae obviously wants Aaron. I get you, Nick. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers in Vegas makes them better than the Chiefs. I don't think it makes them a Super Bowl winner. But I do think it makes them probably a playoff team and relevant. And that's what the Raiders need. I would go get him. You sign Josh Jacobs, then your offense is going to be good. He's as bad as Rodgers was. It was probably the worst season of his career. He was better than Derek Carr. His numbers, you had the graphic, I think we'll show it. Look at his numbers. Better than Derek Carr in clearly the worst season of his career.
I don't believe that graphic.
So your offense would be better,
and
you got to improve the defense. But it makes them relevant. Everybody's not
They literally made the playoffs a year ago, and then they cut the guy. They were in the playoffs a year
they
ago.
should have kept
Signed Devontae Adams, brought in Chandler Jones. I don't know if we can show you guys the best play of Chandler's season. And then they decide they got to move on. Like, Coach, this is not a sustainable model for a team that is trying to compete with 2 teams, I believe, that are going to be at the top of the division in the Chiefs and the Chargers, who have the long-term quarterback.
I do love the fact that you have the luxury of the best quarterback in the league, and you're lecturing everybody else on how they should go and get a quarterback.
Just give up for the next 10 years.
Yeah,
right?
it's like you're preaching from this pile of riches. So when you don't have a quarterback, you're desperately looking for one. Now, would I move on from Derek Carr? I don't think so. But they did, and now you're talking about a guy who's been in a West Coast system his whole life, coming to try to fit in Josh McDaniels' system, which isn't that way, and Josh isn't going to adjust his system. Josh has a very strong personality. Aaron Rodgers has a very strong personality. I don't think that's a fit from that perspective. To me, I imagine Josh wants to go with someone he is either familiar with or someone he can develop, as opposed to going to get a guy. I mean, it could. I mean, Jimmy G is obviously a candidate because it seemed like they had a good relationship when he was there. But to go get Aaron Rodgers, it just doesn't seem like a fit. I have no problem with trying to upgrade your quarterback room and getting a guy like Aaron Rodgers if he's available. I just don't think they're a system or personality.
As much as
fit.
we like Jimmy G and quarterback wins and winning football games, which actually matters.
He's a winner.
Would Devontae Adams fit with Jimmy G when Jimmy G doesn't throw the ball down the field like Devontae Adams prefers?
Well, Devontae Adams fits with anybody. Well, if you have a great player, great players fit in any system.
Even with Jimmy G.
They make quarterbacks better when you have someone.
Jimmy G is
G
worse
did
than
for
Derek
Shanahan.
Carr, and they just cut Derek Carr. They were hoping to get Brady, and now I think they're just.
That's why they might go.
They're
Rodgers.
still with the
But
49ers.
they
wouldn't
shouldn't
bring
give
back
up too much.
Derek Carr.
Oh yeah, just change their mind. And by the way, I guess I keep
just
saying they
kidding.
cut Derek Carr, but they haven't. Derek Carr's still on the roster, and I guess they could
He's
just
not
decide to have a
happy.
mulligan.
Yeah,
Understandably
they were on a
so.
break.
Right. Separation.
Coming up next, Cowboys are committing to Dak for 10 years maybe.